Hi, I'm Dr. Ellis Orozco, and thanks for listening to this video podcast. I hope you have a great weekend. Hi, and thanks for listening in. I wanted to talk this weekend a little bit about prayer, and especially the place where Jesus says that we're to pray for our enemies. I've been thinking a lot about this, I guess because things seem so polarized in our nation right now, and the conversations that are going on social media and on the news just seem like it's really tearing us apart. And so I'm just reminded again and again of Jesus' words where he tells his disciples that we're to pray for our enemies. And it just struck me that right now it seems for a lot of people, they're viewing their biggest enemy as the person who thinks differently than they do on political issues. So how do we pray for our political enemies or pray for our political leaders, whether we agree with them or not? So I want to look at a couple of things that Jesus said and did. And the first thing is that you have to get your attitude right. Jesus said, where your heart is, there your treasure will be also. So the key is to get your heart right. So the first thing I think is to get your heart right in whatever conversation you're having. And in your prayer life, as you begin to pray for that person that you disagree with, is get your heart right. The second, I think, is to get informed. People were coming to Jesus all the time, asking him questions. At one point, the Pharisees came to him and said, should we pay taxes to Caesar? This was one of the biggest issues of their day. And Jesus was always ready to answer. Jesus was well informed on the issues of his day. Here's the thing. When you're praying against something, don't pray against people, pray against issues. There are certain issues out there in our world that we're dealing with politically, and it's okay and actually good to take a side on those issues. Certainly, oftentimes there is a right and there is a wrong, and we as Christians want to be on the side of that which is right. But we have to separate the personalities around those issues from the issues themselves. And you should be praying against certain issues or certain policies, but not against the politicians who are advocating those policies. We pray against issues, not against people. The Apostle Paul said, our battle is not with people. Our war, our fight is not with each other. Our war and our fight is against principalities and powers in the spiritual world. And so be sure that you're not praying against people, but that you're praying against issues. The other thing I would say is start a dialogue with your political enemies, but be ready to listen. With your political leaders, write them, email them. They may not write back, but you might be surprised. Ask them the hard question. Ask them what is on your mind. Jesus tells us that the way to deal with a person that we disagree with is to go to them personally and start a dialogue. And so I would encourage you to do that even as you pray for them. And the final thing is just to pray for common leadership struggles. A lot of times it's hard to pray for our enemies and our political enemies because we don't really know them. Oftentimes we've never even spoken to them. But what I would encourage you to do is to pray for common leadership struggles that all human beings go through as leaders. So pray against temptation. Every leader struggles with temptation. Pray against burnout. Most leaders experience at one time or another some kind of burnout in what they're trying to do. And then pray especially for relationships, for the relationships of those leaders. Pray for their marriages. Pray for their children. Pray for their alliances, their relationships in this world. Listen, I know it's a daunting task to pray for your enemy. I'm not going to kid you and pretend that it's easy. But in this world that is so polarized right now, we need Christians to be the ones who step into the gap, who pull both sides together, and who pray for everyone equally. I hope that you'll think about that this weekend as you seek Jesus with all your heart. God bless you and have a great weekend.